Hi, this is Dr. Francis Yu, and today is another Enneagram discussion. And today we're talking about the 6 with a 5 wing Enneagram type. In particular, this question I asked which type I should talk about next, and Dr. Amelia Bueche said 6 with a 5 wing, and how they can somehow morph into eights. So that's a canister of worms and more. So let's get started. Okay, so to refresh or give context and refresh the context of what the Enneagram types are. Each of the 9 Enneagram types has a core motivation that comes out of a perceived loss or lack of a certain quality. Now, for the type 6, the quality that is perceived to be lost or lacking is groundedness and so groundedness, and you can even say faith. So the type 6 doesn't, if they're so for the type 6, if they stop believing that they don't have groundedness, have a faith to trust and to be trusted, and just this whole complex of trust, they will be motivated to do everything possible to become grounded and obtain this trust and faith in their lives. So, what does this look like? Perfect example today in this, I'm doing this October 28th, 2020, is the election and politics in general shows us how we have some sickness that's part of us. Now, I'm not talking about the actual issues and particular very important uh, ideas that different what's it called different running candidates have. The part of the politics I'm mentioning is the party relationship, because I'm the last person to actually ask about issues and politics. I don't even know what red, blue, elephants, left, right, omnidirectional. I don't know what all that means. But the sixness and politics or parties in general actually go well together. I think it demonstrates what it means. So for the sixness, it's about belonging to a group, because by belonging to a group, you're grounded and you have a sort of a group identity in which now you're grounded and having a group that you can trust. Now, you can see this in people who are, how should I say, very, very dedicated to whichever party they identify with, to the point where the actual issues and political issues or whatever doesn't even register to them. All that matters to them is I belong to this party and I'm this party member, in which that is their reason to their answer to almost everything. I belong to this party. And that is a very, how should I explain this? That is a sixth part of people in which they want to feel grounded by having a group that they believe, the leaders and the group that they can trust and be grounded in them. This is just an example, and this can be uh, go with any other type of groups or even people. So the type 6 person is particularly interested in whose instructions, whose mission, whose vision, whose values, whose actions, who can I be aligned with? Because by being aligned with a group, or they can even actually just create the group themselves and others are with them, they foster a group in which people are aligned and they feel that they trust this group. So, to refresh the context, the type 6 is about aligning with usually a group, it could be individuals as well. A well, let me clarify. The easier example is with the groups, but it very easily happens with people as well. But it is about the trusting, groundedness, and having the faith of I want to feel I'm grounded. I want to know that I'm grounded. So the type 6 does everything to feel like they're grounded. Now, this is an example I always use when I talk about the type 6. So the type 6, what they actually really, 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 really don't like, I say they explode or implode if they have two separate authority figures that are saying opposite things. For example, let's say you have a child and one parent says, uh, you definitely cannot eat a cookie before dinner. And the other parent says, you can have one bite. And whether or not they uh, like really wanted that cookie or whether they end up eating the cookie or not, a part of their inner world is exploded or imploded because these two different authority figures has told this type 6 person a yes and a no. And it said, who do I trust? Who is the one that I can go with? And there is a constant back and forth of believing, doubting, trusting that person, and then not trusting that person. Oh, maybe I can trust in myself. Oh, I'm not sure if I can trust in myself. And there's this flight of inwards and outwards of this buzz of where can I be grounded. On the other hand, sixes are also good at preparing, thinking about the possibilities, solving problems, because by being prepared or making sure the possibilities are considered or having considering potential problems, it helps them be grounded. So they can be thoughtful in that aspect. So if I had to describe a type 6 physician, I would put it in the context of organizations and groups. So, for example, let's say it's an employed physician and they're very always concerned or aware of what their employer, let's say their practice, their hospital, their national organization, or their specialty college, their for example, let's say I'm board certified in family medicine. So is it the family medicine specialty college, or what is it that they're doing? What is the AMA? What is the AOA doing? What is CMS doing? Meaning authority figures that are very involved in leading the physicians or um, physician world. And again, this can be more local too, to be a state organization or a practice or hospital. And the type 6 physician is constantly aware of, can I be aligned with this group's actions, their behavior, their mission, or they're not, I don't know if I can trust them because of XYZ. And they can be quite they can be verbal about it and actually accost, not accost, confront the organization. But for them, it is a inward evaluation and outward evaluation about this do I belong and can I trust this organization, can I trust myself? Again, that's always the inner aspect of that back and forth. And do I feel grounded based on what this my employer, whomever is doing? Now, again, on the other side of that, the type 6 physician can create an organization or be the leader. And they would want to create and foster an environment in which groundedness is very important. Okay, so now I'm going to share again the Enneagram figure, the actual Enneagram, right? This is the Enneagram. Okay, so yeah, you can see my beautiful number annotations that I put around the Enneagram. Now here, this is a little bit more complicated. Well, this is not the complicated version. This is the simpler version. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. And here, our neighborhood that we are concerned with is the 5, 6, 7 neighborhood. And in particular, this is what we call the head triad. Not to say that the 5, 6, 7 are more heady, but it actually means their issue, their complex, or their kind of the buzz of where the work needs to be done more is in the head and the thoughts and all that stuff. And that's, I needed to say that before I show this more complicated picture. The same picture as above, but it's divided into the 891 triad, the 234 triad, and the 567 triad. So a 6 can be, so any person's type would rarely be exactly the 6 or 7 or 8. One's type is, I like to say, anywhere on this circle. So what that means, if you're a type 6, you can potentially, although it's not common at all, to be a quote unquote pure type 6, in which you then are equally distant from type 5 and type 7 in terms of your behavior, your qualities, your motivations. But almost always, I would say, the type 6 would have leaned towards the 5, if you see my cursor, or the 6 would lean towards the 7. That's what we mean by the wings. So the 6 with a 5 wing is their home is 6, but the close neighbor is 5, and the further neighbor is 7. But for the 6, they live in the 5, 6, 7 neighborhood. And since they're in the middle of 5 and 7, they're the poster child or center of the head triad here, the thinking head triad. So without going to supreme details, the idea is the 5, 6, 7 share this commonality of having issues with going back to thinking and try to make thinking solve everything, which it doesn't really happen. We need our heart, our body, and our thinking to make things work. But the 5, 6, 7 tends to gravitate to trying to figure everything out using the thinking. Okay, so back to the wings. Here we're talking about the 6 with a 5 wing. And briefly about the 5, we talked about how the 6 is motivated by wanting groundedness. The 5 is motivated to, I would say, to feel that they know what they're doing in the outside world and to be competent to be able to do so. Because the 5 perceived that they lost the ability of just knowing stuff. Not knowing, not as in just heady knowing, but just knowing how to navigate life and how to just live life. And the type 5 person can rely on their quote unquote head knowledge and at the expense of heart knowledge or body knowledge or just life knowledge. So here, the type, going back to the type 6, The attention is inward. Can I trust myself? Am I grounded? And outwards, can I trust that organization, that person? Do they make me feel grounded? For the type 5, largely the fear is of the outside world because, oh, what if I'm not prepared? I don't know what I'm doing. And so they retreat and withdraw inwards. Now, briefly, just talk about the 7. The 7 is a kind of a counterpart to the 5 in which their thoughts are outwards in their behavior, and they I don't know what the opposite of withdrawal is without draw. I don't know. In other words, they go outwards to get their thoughts off of what's going on inside. They go outside. So a 6 with a 5 wing is concerned with both these things, wanting groundedness, but also to be able to know what they're doing. Like, I know what I'm talking about, I know what I'm doing, and actually living life. And then they also have, they're in the neighborhood close to the 7, so there's some aspects of finding fulfillment and satisfaction by going out and finding new possibilities. So, what does this look like for a physician, a 6 with a 5 wing physician? Stop sharing. I heard this description for a 6 with a 5 wing. They are the type of person to have a group or desire a group or to form a group or be in a group or be part of an organization in which they belong. I belong to this practice. I belong to this specialty college. I belong to the AMA, the AOA, this Facebook group, this physician Facebook group, and oh man, this Facebook physician group. This is my place. This is my home or whatever. And then they want people. They want to, in that circle or a group, to be known as the person who knows stuff about a certain field. Let's say, for example, let's say a family medicine physician who really enjoys being with the annual family medicine conference, whatever, FMX, ACUFP, and whatever. There's plenty of family medicine, AAFP, ACUFP, and within that group, because they feel like they belong to that group, and then now they are let's say, the injection expert within the family medicine group. Now, obviously, there's multiple organizations, multiple types of expertise and interests, but can extrapolate this to any sort of organization or situation. So here, this type 6 with a 5, this type 6 with a 5 wing physician is really, really, really concerned with being part of a group or identifying with a group, or maybe their like degree, or maybe their, I mean, not the degree, but like the degree represents, my physician hood, or my family medicine hood, or my orthopedic posse, or my surgeon soiree, or my etc. You get the idea. And to be number one, grounded within that group, but also to be known as a person, the go-to person in that group for whatever this may be. Now, this is similar to just a brief side point about the 5 to the 6 wing. We're looking at the very similar aspects, but from the opposite, the other part of the neighborhood on the opposite side of the river here. For the 5 with a 6 wing physician, they are, using my previous example, they are the injection expert. they're the expert first, or want to know and be the expert first. And then they find a group to show their expertise. Versus the 6, they want to find a group and then become the expert in that group. So a 6 with a 5-wing physician would also potentially foster or create space for others that potentially share the interests in order to foster this kind of togetherness or belonging. Okay, so the second part of this question by Dr. Beakey was 6 with a 5-wing transforming to the 8. How did she phrase it? She said, how the 6 with a 5-wing and how they can somehow morph into 8s. So to talk about this, let's look at the Enneagram symbol again. So I have 3 potential answers. Number 1, it's the easiest, but maybe the least desirable answer, that this person was a type 8 all along, and they just, when they tried to find their type before, they thought they were a type 6. So maybe it was a very simple or straightforward mistyping, which is the easiest but least desirable answer. It's kind of like it's valid, but it's kind of like a cop-out answer. All right, the second possibility is that a 6 with a 5-wing, the 5-wing, the 5 section or type is connected to the type 8 by a developmental or dynamic line within the circle here. So just a brief explanation how the lines work inside the circle. Each of the types is connected to 2 other types inside the circle by a line, meaning, for example, 6 is connected to the 9 and 6 is connected to 3. Depending on if and when the type 6 is feeling overwhelmed or feeling in a place of security and comfort, their parts of their personality that shows up is the 3-ness or the 9-ness. So to be more specific, so for the type 6, under overwhelm, when they're overwhelmed, they will show characteristics that are like the type 3. And the type 3 is about being driven and acting in order to get stuff done. And in a very, how should I say, in a way that's not holding back, meaning the type 3 is really all about accomplishing and getting stuff done and being driven. So the type 6 can be like that when they're overwhelmed. But when they're underwhelmed, or they're in a, let's say, with trusted people, and they can just relax more and just be more quote unquote themselves, they'll go towards the type 9, in which they can just chill out, they can just let things be, and they in other words, they're feeling like they're grounded in a place that they're feeling grounded with friends or family or their organization, and they're just at peace and more harmonious, and they may even check out mentally because they just feel like they're in a good place. But that's a very super brief example of the 6 and the lines of dynamics. But for a 6 with a 5-wing, the 5-wingness can link them to the 8. So that's another explanation, possible explanation, how the 6 with a 5-wing can morph into a type 8. Now, my third explanation is kind of like my first explanation, in which oh no, let's put it this way. The third explanation is that the type 6 and the type 8 can share similar behaviors under certain circumstances, but the underlying motivation is different. So when can type 6s and type 8s have similar behavior? When there is a situation in which there is a conflict, or there is a circumstance in which an action needs to be taken. So a type 8 will be uh, wanting to protect their barriers and boundaries. They will attempt to show their strength in order to resolve whatever difficulty or conflict is going on, show that they're able to um, overcome it, and also be strong and defensive and offensive, and all in one. For the type 6, it is about trying to return to a place of groundedness and resolve the conflict by being able to uh, establish a groundedness and return the situation to in which they can no longer have this anxiety or slash fear about I don't know what's going on, and I kind of quote unquote freaking out. But they may go out very actively to in order to restore uh, this sense of belonging and groundedness. And very specifically, if their group, their organization, if their posse, if their gang is being security of that's being possibly um, offended, or being what's the word I'm looking for? It's being questioned, or it's being threatened. Yeah, the word I'm looking for is threatened. If their group is being threatened, the type 6 will do what they must in order to keep their group stable. So this is a way in which a type 8 and 6 can look similar on a behavior level, but the motivation is different. With a type 6, again, the motivation is to be grounded, to have a foundation, and in particular, having the belonging in the group. Now, just to be clear, the type 6 isn't a people person per se. They're not going to people and to find out if they can trust every single person and hang out with them. They're the group belonging person. Okay. So here's a fourth kind of explanation of how the 6 with a 5 ring can morph to the 8, meaning, oh, well, basically, if you listen to my answers, I'm saying the 6 with a 5 ring can't morph to the 8. That's just not what happens. Your type is your type. You develop aspects of your type and can develop your dynamics using the arrows within the circle and your levels of development and your wings as well. But you won't become another type. Now, here is my most intellectual guesstimate of what happens if a physician truly is a 6 with a 5 wing, and they're established in terms of their organizations, who they trust, their belonging, their groups, the authority figures that they trust and figures that they don't trust. So they're pretty well off, or not well off, but they're hunky dory in terms of this is going pretty well. So now, by having this foundation and groundedness and trust, it could be internal, external, either or and both. But then this emboldens the type 6 because now they have a foundation to protect or an organization to lead or follow, and this behavior can show up as protecting my boundaries or making sure other people aren't messing with us or messing with me or threatening my strength and what I can accomplish, and which are characteristics that we typically assign, well, not assign, but uh, are more 8-ish things. So those are my all my answers in which how a 6 with a 5 wing can be like an 8, but basically my answer is they can't morph into an 8. They're either were 8 to begin with, or by being emboldened, they're just more uh, in the external world dealing with their boundaries as a type 6, or their 5 wing is developing the 8ness by their lines of the inside. Okay, so to summarize, the Enneagram 6 with a 5 wing physician is particularly concerned with who they can trust and when, themselves, others, in particular organizations, because they want a sense of belonging so that they will deal with feelings, emotions of anxiety and fear by being grounded in having a group or authority figures to trust. This alleviates the anxiety and fear because the type 6 is looking to be grounded because they perceive that they are no longer are grounded. And the 5 wing adds in this element of wanting to be competent and knowing how to live and do stuff in the world, and which can lead to a little bit more withdrawing for the 6 with a 5 wing. And a 6 with a 5 wing can't morph into the type 8 type, but there are various how should I say considerations that can explain how some behaviors may be different, have evolved, but the underlying motivation wouldn't change. Okay, so that is today's Enneagram discussion. And this was Dr. Francis Yu. To learn more, you can go to the Enneagram4Physicians.com, or you can join us at our Facebook group, the Enneagram for Physicians. And I'll see you there. And look out for more videos. You can subscribe. And bye bye.